Temi, so I have to ask you, starting off this podcast, I just saw on your Instagram story, how long do you actually wear your socks until you wash them?
You read that. Okay. I don't know. Me and my wife, we keep talking about it. And because she loves Stan socks. And I don't really like Stan. I mean, Stan socks is good, but they're just pricey. It's like, why am I paying $15 for a pair of socks? But they do last long.
Yeah.
So I never really noticed like how many times I wear my socks until I got married. My wife was like, "You've worn those for 2 days in a row," and I'm like, "And it's not smelly. I didn't wear it for the whole day. I wore it out or whatever."
Yeah.
So I don't know. Me and her, we still talk about it because I'm like, okay, if it doesn't smell, then if you wear it for like 3 hours, 4 hours, it's cool. If your feet were sweating, my feet don't sweat, so. And so I'm like, I don't know. And I think of like shirts and jeans and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I can't be washing my jeans after one wear. It's just, I don't know. So, but I also don't want to be looked at as dirty. So I'm trying to figure out like, what is the communal limit for socks?
Yeah. No, totally. That's so funny. That stuff, I only wanted to ask. I love to just kind of like break up the guests a little bit with something fun. They're always nervous. They're like, I'm going to get asked a big question. I'm like, nah, you gave me the perfect one on your Instagram today. It's like, oh, this is what we're going to talk about. Right. But I think, too, that's just, people grow up so differently. I think, at least for me, it was like you grew up a certain way. Mm-hmm. And as you got older, maybe like high school, college time, I then had people in my life, tell me things that like, I didn't know, or or whatever, or like growing up, I was always like big, sweaty, hairy white kid. So I was like, okay, washing clothes will help me not smell bad. So in my mind, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. That's my solution. Right. But one, like you said, not everybody is like me, right? And they're blessed with less sweat. And then two, if you're able to not wash or all that kind of stuff. But then also it's like, I think I was like 25 when somebody was like, "Oh yeah, I don't wash my jeans after every wear," and I was like, "What?"
Right?
But like your jeans, you gotta keep them nice.
Yeah.
Also,
it's like you can't be washing after one wear. I think I don't know. I've been like, okay, maybe 3. My wife was like, 3's pushing it. I was like, dang. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it depends. Yeah. Now too, you're like we're all working from home, so it's like I feel like most of our nice clothes are our out clothes. If you're not going to the office or whatever, they might not get as much wear as they would. So it's like,
exactly.
You can kind of, or like I literally, when I have podcasts, now that we're doing video, we used to only do audio. So I like wouldn't dress up for podcasts. I'd be like, whatever. But now I'm like, oh, we're putting this on YouTube. Like, okay, I have to at least like put on a cool shirt or something and make sure the studio's ready. And so no, I get that. Awesome. Well, hey, this is going to be a fun conversation, man. I've been following your work, I want to say for like 2.5 years. I found you, I think, I was trying to like go back through Instagram and stuff like that. I think through Andre Leroux.
Okay, yeah, that's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and I didn't even know. I've been a photographer for 10 years and didn't know about like the Adobe Creative Agent or Residency.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was so cool. And I was like, oh, this is sweet. And so then what I did is I just started following all the Adobe residents because I was like, if they're good enough for Adobe, they're good enough for me to take a look at. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And then you were like, how when you follow somebody and you're like, okay, I'll follow them for like a month, and you're like, okay, okay, I'm done. Like I got what I've just been following you the whole time. I'm like, either for my personal or my business account. I'm like, nope. Like Temi is in my brain all the time.
Man, thank you.
Yeah. So your work is cool, and I think it's at least I don't know as many mixed media people who are just so good at both. Or at all of them, to where it's like good enough to be as where you're at and commercialize, and like we'll get to it, but like having an agent, all that kind of stuff is like, and to be fair, is like even the commercial shoots I've been on, it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm coming in to take that photo, and then we're gonna hand it off to Temi, and then Temi's gonna do the graphic magic, but it's like, good for you, Temi, but you can do it all. So,
man.
Like you just getting us out of jobs, but it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I started off with photography in 2011 in college. I went to go study biomedical engineering, but then I switched my major. because I was doing it to make my parents happy, and I was feeling miserable, and I wasn't doing well in my science class.
Yeah.
But yeah, I switched, and I graduated still in 4 years, and then I kind of started dabbling into design even in college, because I really just liked the idea of like grabbing people's attention through design and composition and color and shapes. And so I was growing up, I've been very observant. So I just looked and I was like, man, how did they do that? And then I found out about Photoshop and Illustrator, and I was like, oh, snaps, this is dope. But it wasn't until 2016 that I kind of started wanting to get my graphic design as good as my photography. Because before it was like graphic design, photography was here.
Yeah.
And so I started this poster day project. My friend Magdiel Lopez, he told me about it because we used to work at a church together as graphic designers. And we finally connected back after like 2 years. And so he started it. I started it too. He taught me some stuff. And now we're both still doing it. I was just talking to him yesterday, and we're planning to meet up. But it's just crazy because people told me I had to pick one. You know, they said you can't do design and photography. But I remember my friend Philip Edsel was like, he DM'd me, was like, Temi, this might hurt your feelings. He said, your photography is good. It's all right. But it's like, I feel like your superpower is merging photography and design together. And I was like, but people told me I can't do both. He was like, F them, do what you want to do. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Even in myself, I feel guilty you saying that, because I'm like, on the business side, I usually tell people like, hey, you could probably charge more if you are a specialist at something. Mm-hmm. But in reality, we've got to, readjust that definition, because like, I have zero doubt that you're a specialist, but it's again, and maybe these are just dumb words, but it's like, okay, yeah, like Temi is a digital media craftsperson, or craftsman, basically, because it's like we need to have some cool title, because, and again, there's no bad part about being just a photographer or just a graphic designer either,
right?
But it's like, listen, this homie is good at both, or whatever. And I think too, people don't realize too, like as a photographer, you eventually like, you might dabble in Photoshop, right? You're like, okay, yeah, I took out a lady's pimple for her. That was cool. Like she liked it, whatever. And then, but like switching to saying, all right, I'm going to make a poster a day or a graphic a day. Like you're going to get your chops up, and you're going to, I had a friend on, I think his name is Jose Cavellos. Yeah. Super cool guy. And he just talked about, he was like, there's this common theme, especially on the people who are still in graphics world, where it's like, I play with my tools every day. Like I have to. And if I don't, I'm not making the best work I can for that big name client or for the next client or whatever. And I think it's something that's like, it's underrated, in the creative industry. Like it's easy for me sometimes to be like, okay, I'll touch my camera when I have a gig. And especially now that I'm established, when somebody's new and starting out, I'm like, you need to be shooting every day. You need to be going out there. But I know that I'm better when I'm shooting more, right? Like I'm just happier, more skilled, less stressed out, like ready to roll. So like, kind of two questions. I feel like, I know a little bit about your background. You're from Nigeria. Is there any play with that? Like, where'd your work ethic come from, in the sense of like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this every day until something pops off, or whatever. And like, do you still, it seems like you still make personal work for fun, or I see a lot of your, like, it was rejected work for a client, but it still looks dope. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I think my work ethic definitely comes from like Nigeria, where I was born. I think the greatest thing about our culture is that we make things happen with what we have. We might not always have the best gadgets, the best things in Nigeria, but what we did have, we were able to use to get to a point where we could afford what we actually needed.
Yeah.
So like when I was young, I remember playing playing soccer with Coke bottle covers. Coke bottle covers in paper, and me and my friends were playing it, or making a fake camera with origami paper
Oh wow.
and drawing the person's picture into it. And so whenever I took the picture, the paper fell out. So just being creative and using what I had. And it's the same exact thing when I get into Photoshop. Like, you teach me a new tool, I'm like, cool. How can I use this tool in several ways? How can I push myself to use this tool in unconventional ways? You know, I love to experiment. And I feel like that's just part of me. And there's a lot of things that I design and they become beautiful accidents because I was trying out something new or testing something out. And I was like, oh, snaps. This is pretty dope. Let me look back and see what I did, you know? Yeah. And like, I'm not like, and I admit it, I've told people like, they're like, how you do that? I'm like, well, this is how I did it, but it was an accident, you know? Cause I think that's I don't like when artists try to like take credit for something that was clearly an accident. I feel like there's a lot of pride in that. And so for me, I'm like, accidents happen and I loved it. And so here's how it happened. Here's what I made. And and even the squiggly stuff that is like my signature, I guess. People just, my friend Mac DL actually showed me how to do it because I was always wondering, how do you get these brain patterns on some work? And so my friend showed me where he got the tutorial from, and then I did it, used it a few times, and I was like, okay, this is cute, but it's whatever. Yeah. But now it's almost become like a signature thing, and people can tell that this is Temi. This is Temi. But the crazy thing is, like, I'm not the creator of this pattern. Our brain, that's literally the pattern of our brain. But the thing is called the reaction diffusion. And so I use it. I love it. I've saved it. I've figured out ways to like change it up. But yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. It's like people, I think there's an element where a lot of people, including myself, you'll get like, complacent, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, I feel okay. But it's like that drive, everybody I've talked to on this podcast, like 140 people, it's like everybody had that drive, that hunger. And for some of them, the actualization of what that looked like changed, right? So maybe in photo, it's like, okay, I'm not going to just do photo. I'm going to do this combination of artwork. Or, some people are like, actually, I love social media, or I love video, and they switch from photo to something else. Or at least in the wedding world, it's like education is usually where a lot of people go to. But that drive is the same, like that hunger of like, nah, I want to make this work. And I think it's like people don't really, they underestimate that drive, and just like, listen, if you, at least for me, I grew up and went to school doing music, and I was used to having exactly, like you already know, like you, depending on your training, it's like you have a teacher, if you're doing private lessons, that teacher says this is what you need to learn, and like if you had a fitness instructor or like a personal trainer, they'd be like, this is what I would recommend based on my expertise. And oftentimes a lot of us were like, I don't want to do that, but then we're dissatisfied with the results, right? And it's like, no, like go play with this. And like, I think in music, we would always learn, like an etude or an etude, which is like kind of a bad song usually, but it was to help us learn technique, right? And so like, there's probably plenty of stuff you've done illustration wise, you were like, yeah, I wouldn't hang this on my wall, but the diffusion technique, you're like, oh, I like got used to making this and using this, and like now this is a tool, right, rather than the artwork itself, right? And I think I don't know, just a lot of people like discount the hard work, and it's like, listen, like eventually you can make this like muscle memory, like make this to
exactly, and you have a great the cool thing about these poster stuff is I've made over 500 posters just personally. Not counting client work. If you count client work, probably a lot more. Yeah. But now I have a repository of all of these posters I can always go back to. I have the PSD files. I can see what I did. I've had clients want to license stuff that I did for fun. And that's why I keep telling people, the important thing is, like you said, that work ethic. So find that passion project that you want to work on and share with people. But don't do it for money. Don't do it because you want X and X client to see it. If they see it, cool. If they don't, like, be proud of that. Because I don't think it's good for us to put these pressure on ourselves to say, oh, I'm gonna make this passion project that has Nike products in it so that Nike can hit me up ASAP. And for me, it's like, no, like the shoe posters I did, not a lot of people know this, but I started it because I was gonna get these LeBron shoes for my wife, but it got sold out. Yeah. And I was sad. And so I just went online, found the shoe and made a poster from it to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And then it started this trend. I was like, oh shoot, this is pretty dope. Let me see. Let me look at other shoes. Let me try to get another shoe. Couldn't get it. Made a post out of it.
Yeah.
So when I started seeing shoes that I couldn't get or shoes that I just liked, I started making a post out of it. And then companies started reaching out. Hey, can you design this shoe? Can you design this and this shoe poster? And I was like, sure. Okay. But for me, even when I got hired to do those things, it just felt like I was making another shoe poster for fun. And money was just a plus.
Right.
And yeah, like this year marks 10 years of doing this, of being in this creative journey. And it was just 2019 fall to 2020 that I really started feeling like I was catching a stride and really finding a voice and finding a style. And so it's like, took almost 8 years to kind of get to a place where I'm like, yes, I love this. I think this is where I'm going. And and it's okay to experiment. It took those 8 years of experimenting and even almost pivoting completely from photography to just design. But the cool thing is, with my knowledge of photography, I'm able to like focus on the type of pictures that I want to do my designs on. And I've had clients where they're like, hey, there's quarantine, so you can't shoot it, but can you tell us what you would like the picture to look like? And I'm able to make a mood board and tell them where I want the lights to be and stuff like that. So it's come in handy.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think that's the other recognition with what you do is like, you can also communicate what you need. Mm-hmm. I know I had a project 2 years ago, and I'm primarily, just a wedding photographer. That's mostly what I do. That I usually photograph some high-end events for some big corporate clients, and that's really fun. But it's usually stuff I don't show or share.
Right, right.
But their idea was like, now that marketing has moved kind of in this, everybody loves images, everybody loves graphics, everybody loves video, and most big companies are on board. It's like the next step was like, okay, if you've ever been to an event, the event photos usually look pretty rough.
Yeah,
it's usually not great, because it's such a hard, it's usually like everything's unpredictable. It's a lack of control, right? Mm-hmm. Versus like a studio shoot. But for, something folks, it's like we're used to that. Every weekend is a different thing, different situation. It rained, it snowed, there's a pandemic, somebody gets hit by a car, whatever.
Right.
And so it's like we're used to making, impactful moments if we're lucky, and if we have the skills to do that. And so a lot of these brands are hiring us to do that. And it's really, really cool because then we get to come in and I don't have to think corporate. I have to think like, how do I sell this event as something cool to be at, and how do I, take photos that are modern and colorful and it's been really cool. But all that to say is like, because of that, one of those clients I'd worked for about 6 years, they said, hey, could you do a photography style guide, for all of our other photographers?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I think so, right? I was like, I assume I have the communication, right? I have like what I would how I think basically, and like what I would use and things to look for. And it was a big project, but it was cool. And it was like the brand said, hey, we're going to use this for all our photographers,
Wow.
worldwide, and just give this to them as like, hey, this is what we look for. But they needed somebody who spoke photographer, who spoke this kind of thing. And it was so cool. And then like you pull images and you're like, hey, this is what I was looking for. This is what, this is why I did it this way.
Right.
This is why the client likes it. Because they give it to graphic design, and then they're like, hey, I've got some minimal space to play with, or this is going to go on a billboard. All of our dimensions, things you have to think about. And that's where I realized too, like, if I only thought like a photographer and I was like, oh yeah, my world is just in 3x2, whatever, and whatever is in here is what it is. It's like, okay, that's cool. But the first time you work with a graphic designer and you're like, hey, could you shoot it a little wider? And like, the photo wouldn't look as good, but you're like, Adam, it's going on a billboard or a TV or an iPhone. And then you're like, oh, okay. And like starting to think how you can help the team and how you can help, like, what's the client's goal,
right?
Is going to be even helpful. And again, it takes some like humility to be like, okay, what do I not know and what do I need to know? And then can I just say, hey, how can I help make this better?
That's true.
But again, that's not none of that is what we learned in college and university or the photo school, is like how to ask clients what they really need, or how to talk about this. Right? It's like, all right, here's how to shoot, what's up, or here's art, what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. What's so I've been emailing you a little bit, and I was like, all right, it'd be great to have you on. What's it look like? We try to schedule stuff, and as you know, I'll chase you down. I'll just be like, all right, what's up? Like I'll set the automatic email to check on you and be like, what's up, man? And you were like, hey, things are kind of busy, things are kind of crazy. I didn't know, and obviously couldn't tell me. We know now you're at least crushing some AT&T work and some Peloton work. So congrats.
Thank you.
Both those campaigns look amazing, man. What was that like? Like that, obviously you've worked for big clients. Like I have like Apple and Twitter and Instagram on the list that I've seen. But like, I feel like Peloton is like in our generation's like psyche right now. So that's really cool. It's just like peak. The next shoot you're gonna do is for GameStop, right? Like that's gonna, like just what was that like?
Yeah, no, it was really dope because to come up with the design, they partnered us 4 designers with 2 Black instructors, which I thought was amazing.
That's because
I think it's important for us to be able to have a safe space to talk about what's going on in the world and what we want to represent for Black history. And so
totally.
I spent like an hour or so with Jess and Chelsea, and we just talked about importance of Black history, our different
backgrounds or
different backgrounds, upbringings. When we realized that our skin was not a mistake, when we decided to really be unapologetically Black. And so one thing that we agreed on was that whatever I designed, we did not want it to be something that you just wear for Black History Month. We wanted it to be something you can wear for the whole year. Because
totally.
Black history is not just a month. It's every day,
And your skin doesn't change color just for this month. It's not like it goes back at February 29th.
Exactly. I mean, for some people, their Instagram feed changes, but it is what it is. It's Black in February, then it goes back to white for the rest of the year. And then it comes back January ending. They start looking.
Sprinkling it out. They're like, we're just so excited for the diverse.
And I've had a lot of companies like reach out to do some work, and I've had to turn a lot down just because I'm busy, but also some of them, it was just last minute. It's like you're reaching out to me on January 28th about doing something in February.
And sometimes too, not to cut you off, but like, in a lot of my conversations with some of my Black friends, it's basically been, and even, I get these emails too, but it's like, if something doesn't feel right or doesn't feel like
authentic,
it doesn't feel like a good authentic relationship. It doesn't feel like somebody's trying, in the good way, right? Like, because I think there's there's forgiveness for everybody, or there's patience or whatever, or like a cool opportunity. But at the same time, if it feels like, if it feels like, hey, am I going to be your token person? Or hey, because it's like, even. This sounds so silly, you'll laugh at this, and this is not the same by any means, but in the wedding industry, it's mostly ladies. And sometimes they'll do a conference, they'll be like, we need a dude. We need a fun dude.
Yeah.
And I'll get that email, and I'll be like, are you interested in what I have to say,
You
or
just
like
want
do
a
you just
guide there. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like we're trying to also do this, but anyway, I know that's not the same, but I know it's like if it's not authentic, if it doesn't feel right, you gotta say no. Because then
Yeah.
you might end up being unhappy anyway. Because it's if they're doing it for the wrong reasons, it's not good.
Exactly. And it's just, I think for me, the story behind each campaign is important to me.
Yeah,
AT&T, it was crazy because the ideas they have were things I've always wanted to do. The whole
yeah,
portrait stuff of different people. I was planning to do that before COVID happened. We had a studio ready and everything. We're going to have people come in. I have 2 or 3 different templates, take the picture and put them in there. But now you can do it with AT&T online for free,
yeah.
And it was just a good collaboration. So, yeah. And then with Peloton, just wanted to tell that story. And, you know, let people know that Black lives have always been important and Black history is not just a month.
Yeah.
But also want to celebrate our Blackness and the vibrancy of our culture, which is why, of course, like it's blue, it's crazy colors.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so when they were sending me screenshots of like the shoot and what they were thinking, it was crazy because I had to like pitch to them how I would want it to look on the bra, on the pants, shirt, hoodie, and all of that. And so we teamed up and had different revisions and iterations. I'm actually wearing one. This is the hoodie today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just
that right there. That's why we went video. It was like so we could see Temi's hoodie right there.
Yeah. So yeah, and they sent some to me, and so I got one for my wife. I got one for my sister as well. And then there was a lady that reached out to me on Twitter. She was a teacher, history teacher in the UK, but she was at work when it launched, and so all of the
pre-orders or something.
Yeah, all of the sizes were not all of the sizes. The big sizes were sold out. So the 1X, 2X, 3X.
Yeah.
And so she was really distraught and kind of complained on Twitter. So I reached out to her, DM'd her, and I talked to Peloton, and we were able to get a piece for her. And so
that's cool
because she was a Black teacher, and I just felt like it was important to make sure she gets that because she's literally making and teaching history.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so I'm excited about the projects that I have with AT&T and Peloton. There's a lot more projects coming this year. I can't talk much about it.
Totally.
But,
yeah. That's cool. That's awesome, man. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I feel like following you for a while, you get pumped for your people. You get pumped for the people you're rooting for or your creatives that you're excited for. And even stuff where it'd be like somebody else I know would feature your work and vice versa. Or like this he's on my guest list, trust me. Joshua Kesey.
Oh, yeah.
Kissy.
That's my guy.
I'm like, all right, it'd be great to have him on. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I want to talk to him. And then see that you guys have interacted a little bit or like, collabed a little bit at some level. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is like watching the Avengers, I guess. Like, okay, they're just powering up and just making it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask some design business stuff. So I want to ask you, one, you're now at the point where you have an agent. So without it being too open-ended, for designers hustling at home, for people, like artists who are like, okay, do people need an agent? 2, how long was it until you got one? And what did things look like prior to that? And what does it look like now? As much as you can share comfortably, but feel free to get in the weeds. Like if do you spend all day in RFPs, requests for proposals, or do you just get to create and they say, hey, here's the gig, I got you, thanks, bye. Like what's that look like?
Yeah, I just got an agent last year because a big gig from Apple came to me and I didn't know how to price it. They were like, what's your budget? And I was like, what? And it's like, perpetuity, want to have it here and here and here. And I was like, what? So I actually called Joshua and I was like, yo, I don't know what to charge. And he was like, he connected me with his agent, which is funny enough because she's also the same agent for my other friend who told me about her. And so when Joshua mentioned her name, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So me and
Yeah.
her talked on the phone. She talked with Apple, able to give them a quote. And then we did it wasn't really like an interview. We just talked. We were just like, hey, what do you
Sure.
do? How long have you been doing it? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, this is what I've done. Here's the clients I've worked for, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of like a handshake deal. There's some agencies that want you to sign a contract. And I honestly don't think that's always smart because you could sign and be stuck for a year when
Sure.
there are other people that could help you get better gigs.
Yeah.
But
Does
yeah,
she do that for you? Will she go find gigs for you, or like in that
yeah,
scenario?
she's found some. She's found some.
That's cool.
And
Or is it like a percentage of the gig? Like if she's like,
yeah,
the
always
quote's 100K, she gets 10% or something.
Yeah, she always gets a percentage, and she. So pretty much before her, they reach out to me. They tell me the scope. I'm like, okay, that's my budget. I give them a budget, or sometimes they'll give me a budget, and I would just take it because I was like, well, I wasn't gonna charge even that high,
Sure. Yeah. Depending on the client. Yeah.
Yeah, and but she's been in the industry for like 10 plus years, and she knows a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so she knows how much things cost. She knows like, okay, if someone says they want to hire Temi for a design, her questions are like, okay, where's it going to live?
Yeah.
Is it going to live just on Instagram and your social, or are you going to try to print it? Is it going to be a billboard? Because some companies would be like, yeah, it's just going to be for social. And then 5 months later, you see it on the billboard, because it did so well, but it never came back to you.
Yep.
So she's done that, and there have been some things where it's like, hey, this is going to be on TV. How much are we going to charge? And I'm like, we'll refer to Vanessa. That's her name. And yeah, she's been very helpful. I mean, talking like some companies will come in with chicken chumps or whatever, and
chicken change.
Yeah, and
I love it.
She will talk with them and then come back to me, and it's like 20x more than what they said they were going to pay, and it's like, how did you do that? But that's why she's there, and she has an incentive as well because she gets a cut.
Sure.
But yeah, so she reps me, Joshua, and another person, Jade, who's an amazing illustrator as well.
That's cool.
But yeah, so it's been awesome because now I don't have to like do the work and worry about money.
Yeah.
But I'm an organized person, so I use Notion for project management and things like that. And so whenever a gig comes in, I put in the name of the gig, the time it was awarded, or whether it's pending, how much I'm going to get after she takes her cut. So that way I know how much is coming in.
Sure. No, totally.
So that I'm not just sitting in limbo, and so that in case there's an oversight on some of the payment, I can follow up and say, hey, I haven't received this payment yet.
Yeah, totally.
So
you're just making sure that you got your expectations ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's like you get all that stuff done. And I think as you're looking at your project and you're working on this and you're working for Apple or X name of client, and it's like, okay, this client wants a lot of deliverables, but okay, I see what they're bringing me, and I see what no one, that's fine.
Right.
You forget, right? If you got multiple clients, sometimes you'll be like, what am I doing for them again?
Yeah.
And it's good to always stay in touch with that, and that makes sense. I think the number one thing I've learned for agents on the good side of things, not like the people that want to take advantage of you, is like, it's their job to fight for you and know the industry. And I think as artists, like most of us suck at business, and the lucky ones who are kind of okay at it make it.
Yeah.
And then if you can have an agent, then you can say, oh, let me just hand this to you.
Right.
And like, just sign the check.
Right.
I'll make sure that I get to do my thing.
Right.
And people don't realize like how beneficial that can be, because it's like you said, you now get to hopefully focus on what you like doing, and creating artwork. And your agent's going to find clients that you like, right? Too, like hopefully, she's not going to find something that doesn't feel like you, or she's
Right.
like, hey, Bed Bath and Beyond called, and you're like, all right, I don't know if they're doing anything right now that would line up, and maybe they will. That would be a strange January 28th email.
Yeah.
But I think like that's the coolest part I've seen, and I've tried to do that even myself with other wedding photographers who need a little bit more work. We've added them to the team, and I say, hey, I'll manage all the BS.
Right.
I'll manage all the marketing, the social, the SEO, the client communications, the contracts, the market, all that stuff that like we have to know to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the reality, we just want to either take photos and love people or create art,
Right.
like, so I'm like, what if you only had to take photos and love people,
Right.
and like, yeah, I'll get a cut, but I'll take away the ugly stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never have to worry about a late night client email or a
Right.
last minute thing or anything like that. Like, you'll only have to do this thing. And I think it's underrated in the creative industry because
yeah.
we are independent, and it is easy for us to look at the bag and say, why wouldn't I want the whole bag?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, listen, like part of it is that stress worth it?
Yeah.
And it's, and if that person can fight for you to get more and
Mm-hmm.
can help that company hold to the contract, or say, hey, we actually didn't agree to any sneak peeks or any
Right.
1 week previews, you got to wait another week.
Right.
They can kind of do it's not even dirty work, but like do the businessy admin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, people don't get that. So it is something that I think creatives can look into. Do you think you have to have a certain client level to have an agent? Like if you're like, hey, if you're doing 6-figure contracts or bigger, definitely have an agent. Or you're like, actually, and not necessarily Apple per se, but you're like, actually, I think you should get an agent when it's 25K or 50K. Like,
Yeah.
or
yeah.
is it not on the money?
I think it really just depends on how much work comes in, and also like, because my email is still like, I just got an email yesterday, and literally like every week there's a few emails about work, which I'm grateful for because it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think it's not. I think it's not as easy to get agents like people sometimes think, because a lot of agencies, you don't see like an application, you just see all the artists,
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
usually like a contact person. And so I think reaching out to them and seeing that the company is like looking to rep people and they look at your work and blah, blah, blah. For me, I think I was just like lucky and just at the right place at the right time,
Right.
And now she's been my agent. It's going to be a year this month.
That's awesome.
And so we've definitely had our ups and downs, just trying to get our groove, me and
Sure.
her.
Yeah.
And I think we're finally like in a good, steady pace. And yeah, I think it's important to definitely think about getting repped once you start hitting those like 5-figure numbers, you
Sure.
know. And also just like my agent, if I tell her I'm burnt out, she's like, we're done. Say
Yeah.
less, and she will help me. Like she helped me type up what I should write as an auto reply, and
Sure.
even with this AT&T thing, we negotiated for like a few days because
Sure.
there was some stuff they were asking weren't really. We're like, if you're gonna ask for that, y'all better pay more,
Totally.
And it was cool. Like I loved the negotiation process. There was no like arguments. It was just like us both trying to figure out where can we compromise.
Yeah, totally.
But one thing that I liked about my agent is that whenever we're negotiating with any company, she always tells me like, hey, are you fine with this amount? You can always say no.
Yeah.
You can always push for more.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's that, like, I care about your aspect to this. You can always say no. Are you sure? You have all of these other projects. Because sometimes I would just say yes and then just like sleep later,
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
yeah. So that's been cool because she has really like gotten me to like slow down and be like, hey, look, you don't have to take this.
Yeah.
There's more
totally.
opportunities that will come later. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's like people, one of my takeaways from just hearing that conversation that's like good advice for other designers is like, or creatives is one, you know, even how you found her, make sure you're friends with other creatives. Like it's not a dog eat dog world
Right.
too much. Like we all can be successful, and like, thank God that Joshua had the same, or even had an agent. And you're like, oh, okay, he's somebody kind of in the similar realm, doing similar size projects. Like, let me just ping him and see what's up, whatever. And I think too, like a lot of creatives get scared, and you guys are friends, but even if Josh was like, hey man, I need like an hour's, consulting fee for us to talk about it, but I'll give you everything. You'd probably be like, okay, right?
Yeah.
Like if he was like, sorry, bro, I got to charge, $500, be like, this is going to give me lots of money. I have this huge client coming.
Investments. You have to invest in your business and yourself.
Yeah, and it's twofold because you're like, all right, I respect you, I respect your time, I would want money for my time, all that stuff, and then two, like I just can't get over the agent is like just them knowing the industry, them knowing what normally gets paid, them fighting to get more money, whatever. Again, too, like it takes the ugliness out of it, and not that every negotiation is ugly, but it's like they can help clarify.
Yeah,
like you mentioned, when a client's like, hey, we need a design, you're like, well, what's that mean? There's so many questions to that. And I think too, it sounds like even with like AT&T and Peloton, it's, in the good way, those companies have some smart people on their side who are aware of cool artists, who are aware of cool, like they're like, all right, I have a touch point on cool, vendors that we can touch, and make it happen, and not just have the same old or whatever. So that someday, hopefully 10 years from now, it's like, oh yeah, AT&T, you think like big American corporate company, but you're like, they've showed up every 10 years, or whatever, and they've cheered on and helped the black creatives. Be like, okay, that's a good thing. That's it's never gonna be perfect, but that's a better. We're moving forward or whatever. And I always think of that stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, like you have to make that work, and push that.
Yeah.
Another question for you. Well, these are all questions. No. But what's your process? I think of the designer who's like, they don't have the gigs coming in yet, and they want to practice like we've talked about. They want to make a poster a day, or they want to make something every day. How do they practically do that if they're just like not inspired, or they're not sure, or what does that look like for you? You sit down in the morning, you have nothing on your plate, and you're like, all right, I'm about to make something for me. Are you open to Photoshop? Or do you start with a color palette? Do you not even know? Do you say, all right, I'm going to make it based off a movie we watched last night? Or like, how does that process work for you? And without selling anything, proprietary information,
I mean, I open up Photoshop. I always usually start off with like a subject. So I'm searching images. I'm looking at images I've already shot. And I have ideas in mind usually, but it evolves as I add to it. So that's the exciting part. But yeah, I don't think there's no like special thing. I think the biggest thing is just doing it. And, if you feel uninspired, don't do it. I tell people like there's no need to rush. If you're uninspired, it might just be a time for you to just take things in, watch TV, sleep, let your brain rest. Yeah. And if you're inspired, start making things. I took a 2-month break, November and December, and came back January, and now I'm like, the amount of work that came in was so much. It required a lot of creative energy, and I'm so glad I rested because I'm able to just crank things out. Like AT&T thing was like, I'm talking like a week or 2-week turnaround type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually how those companies roll.
Yeah.
Nobody's giving you advance notice.
Yeah. And that was like after maybe like almost a week of negotiation and stuff like that. So it's just, it's just being inspired and creating something for yourself. As long as you love it, that is all that should matter. Nothing else should matter. Don't create for Instagram. Don't create for the likes. Create what you love If you want to post it, but make sure you validate yourself before you post it. I think people try to validate how good their work is by the amount of likes. Even with my followers, I mean, there's some posts I get like 500-600 likes.
Yeah.
You know, blame it on the Instagram algorithm. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
I loved it. I posted it. I shared it.
That's all that matters.
And I'm not perfect. I still have my days sometimes where I'm like, dang, did I do something wrong? Am I like, you know? But at the end of the day, I have to remind myself why I made this, why I do what I do. And I create for myself first, and then others are second.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I have a question for you listening to that, and I ask lots of creatives this question. Mm-hmm. Would you still design the way and how you wanted if it couldn't be your job?
Oof. Yeah.
Like if you didn't make money from design, if you had to have a different job, would you still do it?
Oh yeah. I was doing this while I was teaching for 3 years. You know, I taught, I went back to my old high school to teach photography and design. And every Friday I brought my poster a day project into the classroom so I could make a poster for that day. But then I would show the kids how to make it as well. But yeah, it's very therapeutic. You know, now I haven't had much time to like make posters every day, but every day I'm making something for either a company or sometimes it's just for myself. But every day I'm creating in some form or capacity. And so, I'm definitely, you know, grateful to be able to do that. But yeah, I create when I can, and when I can't and I'm feeling burnt out, I take a break.
Yeah.
But I think to be able to take a break, you have to be smart about saving up and knowing like, hey, I'm going to take a break November and December. So as I get all these gigs, I need to save up enough money to take care of all our bills for those 2 months.
Totally.
You know, so I did that last year. I was able to take November and December off without like batting an eye or That's like, awesome. Oh my gosh, where's the money going to come from? You know, I was saving since February.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm doing the same thing again this year. So yeah.
That's cool. That's one thing I wish more creatives knew. Like I've only the last few years finally gotten my own, you know, money situation going good. Like making sure I think it helped, when I got married, my wife was like, so how much money do you make? Like, how should we do bills? All that kind of stuff. And I didn't have an answer. I was like, well, I know I make money. I know how much, you know, wedding I charge, and I know what my expenses are. But I was like not paying Adam, you know, I was paying my company. Yeah. And I'd only take out what I need. And so, you know, our wives are gifts, if you will. She needed a concrete answer. It was like, okay, like what are we going to give ourselves or whatever. And then, yeah, like planning even for retirement or whatever as creatives. Like I just did a Patreon post about this because it was like, all right, guys, like here's what I know. And also too, you know, come tax time, this will help you with tax time, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, again, it's like an investment in your business, learning that, and then an investment in you, you know, so that it's like, so you don't have to work, you know, for the rest of your lives if you want, or you can, and you can just, you know, make that bankroll, or like taking a month off, like, all right, here's how we can save. Like, here's how we can put that in a plan. Only because I think, you know, this is like it slowly just flips when you stop like having the anxiety about money. Right. And money's just like, okay, this is just another piece on the paper and I'm thankful for it and I'm grateful for it and it's awesome. Whereas before the switch flipped, you're like, okay, money is the goal. Right. You know, you're like, all right, like rent is this much, phone is this much, this, you know, Adobe subscriptions, you know, whatever, all that stuff. And so you're like, okay, like this is what I have to make. Yeah. And so, you know, but during both those times, it's like, hey, you can still plan and, you know, save 10% of everything you make for a rainy day fund or a runway, as some people say, or like, I talk a lot to creatives who are trying to leave their full-time gigs, and I'm always like, how much money you got in the bank? And they're like, you know, whatever my last paycheck was. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, do you have any margin? Right. You know, can you like, I'm not going to tell you how to live, but if you want this goal, if you change some things, you can hit that goal sooner, you know, and like let's have a month in the runway, or let's have 6 months in the runway. Right. And then, you can take those gigs you want, or you're not nervous about it that month that doesn't come in and stuff like that. But yeah, we could have a whole other episode on creatives and money, like what we've learned, especially our backgrounds. I assume we have similar backgrounds. Where it's like a guy from Nigeria, obviously different at some level, but it's like, I grew up in a small town, single parent, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, hey, if we're lucky to eat out, it's going to be once a month, if you're lucky, if at all, or whatever. But that did help me, like, okay, I know what my bare minimum needs are, right? And if we just meet those, we can save the rest if we need to. Like, you kind of get strategic about it. So no, that's awesome. I think it's like, and were you stressed about money during those 2 months?
Oh, nope.
Yeah. No, it's great. You're just like, all right. Like
I was sleeping. I was watching TV. I was just like, okay, we paid ourselves. Let's live life normally.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's too the one thing that people don't realize either is like you're the business, and like you're still gonna get a check, and you get to decide if that's how you want your business to run. And it's like once you get to decide that, it's awesome. You're like, okay, cool. That's how I want to roll. I don't want to, and it's not like you don't want to work, but you're like, my work will be better. Right. You're setting yourself up, and then come January, AT&T is like, what's up? We'd like to add another T, the Temi T,
right?
And you're like, I'm in, son. Like, let's make this happen. So that's really cool. Awesome, man. Well, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. I love it. We didn't even get to talk about it, but I feel like we both had like church media backgrounds.
Oh yeah,
as definitely. Well. So that's cool. But without getting into any details or violating any NDAs, what do you got going on the rest of the year? Anything fun that you're excited about?
Yeah.
I know it's COVID, so it's like, I'm home.
Yeah, I'm home a lot.
We might get a dog.
Well, we might. I'm trying to plan like a getaway for my wife and I. Our anniversary is on May 5th, so trying to figure out where to go. We might just drive somewhere, whether it's Austin. Yeah. Austin.
You're in Texas, right? You're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
You could go to Mexico.
We could.
Mexico's open.
Yeah, I heard. I don't know. I heard Tulum had some COVID cases again. We're going to go back there, so we'll just have to figure out what we're going to do. Because my wife loves to travel. We're supposed to go to Paris last year, but COVID happened. Yeah. So I've just been saving up because I know once COVID goes down, my wife is definitely going to want to. Yeah. She's going to want to go everywhere.
That's how I am. Yeah. I've got my list. Like post-COVID, I'm like, this is where we're going. I even have like a middle ground where there are friends of ours. Like my wife is a teacher, so we're like, okay, she's first in line to get the vaccine. Once she's vaccinated, everything stays the same. But once our friend group gets vaccinated, we're like, all right, we feel comfortable flying again. Like, all right, this is what we're doing. Right. And then it's like, what's open? What's going to happen? And then
that's true.
And then once it's all over, it's like you gotta go. You gotta go, man. Yeah, especially if that, like, I assume for your wife, that brings her joy, right?
So like, yeah. Right. And I'm an introvert. The kind of guy that would just stay in the room and watch Netflix or play games in the dark.
Yeah.
So that's just me. But she's getting me out of that box, and I'm trying to travel with her more and just try to enjoy it. I'm a money person, so I'm always like thinking about the money, but she's an experienced person. And so we have to figure out like where that middle ground is. Cause I'm like, okay, well, why would we spend $2,000 here when we can just put that money in retirement for the future, or the 2,000 make us more money. So that's kind of my mindset, but I'm definitely finding the middle ground. So
yeah, it's hard. I mean, not to keep you on too long, but it's like, I'm working through that myself where there's, if you could retire earlier, you're like, okay, cool. Maybe 55, right? Like America's usually like 60, 65-ish.
Right.
But you say like, okay, 55. But then, like, what will my body be like at 55? What will, and not that y'all are trying to like, I assume you're not trying to hike Everest right now, but you want to walk around Paris, or you want to be able to eat whatever you want without feeling like, oh, I had to lose a day because I ate the wrong thing.
Right.
All that kind of stuff, getting old is not fun, so there's this balance, right? Like, hey, we are also at the optimal body times for us to do this. This is fun.
That's
like,
true.
Let's enjoy. I think about that often because I'm like, okay, do I put this away now so that I can be free at 55, or do I have a little taste of freedom now and I retire at 56? And like, what's that balance, or can we work hard enough to have both but still have the other boundaries, right? Like, lots of different. It's a shuffle. It's a game eventually.
It really is. It really is. And so it's like just trying to find that balance in that medium or that middle ground. So.
No, totally. I love that. Well, awesome, man. Dude, seriously, thank you again. Where's the best place for people to go and find you? And where could we send people to go say hi and check out your stuff?
I'm on Instagram at temi.coker. So my first and last name with the dot in between. And my website is temicoker.co, but I'm getting it redone. So it should be finished by the end of this month, hopefully. I'm really excited for it because I haven't really had consistency with the website for the past 2 years. And I think it hasn't reflected the caliber of work that I've been doing because I just haven't been able to share as much. So I'm excited for this. Hopefully it'll bring more work. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. Seriously, dude. Thank you so much, man. Have a wonderful day, dude.
Thank you
so much. Guys, thank you so much for checking out The Bearded Hog. It really means a lot. If you can, leave a like on the video. If you want to see more videos, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications on when new videos come out immediately. Have a wonderful day, guys, and keep being awesome.